Welcome to 123 Minimize, the podcast about easy minimalism for busy moms with Jody and Linnea.
Welcome to today's podcast where we will be discussing road trips. So, Linnea, you go on road trips a lot. Mm-hmm. How many times a year would you say you're packing up and moving?
Well, in the 3 years that we've been full-time RVers, I happen to know we've moved over 100 times.
Wow.
So not every one of those was a long distance. Some of them were just across town. But there have been lots and lots of road trips over the years, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a lot. So how do you prepare and get ready to travel?
Mm-hmm. Well, some of the things we do might be slightly different than someone who's not living in an RV, of course, because we have to prepare to pack up our whole trailer. But I'm sure a lot of it crosses over. The day before, we just always make sure that our fuel is completely full. That's specifically for RVing, especially I should say for RVing, because it's much easier to get fuel when you're not hooked up to a trailer. Mm-hmm. Not impossible, but much easier. Yeah. But in any case, you don't want to be stopping for fuel right away on a travel day when you're right, especially if you're like going a long distance and you really want to make it there by a certain time. So fill up your fuel. We always make sure we have all kinds of foods that are good for travel. Things that we can pack in a cooler, things that are easy to eat in the car, snacks. We make sure the kids plug in their devices that they're going to use for their screen time, because we do allow that even on a travel day. And we also have each kid prepare other activities that they can do. Sometimes they'll bring a game that they'll play, cards or other things, activity books, or books they just want to read. We might go into Libby or Audible and pick out some books that we're going to listen to, and kind of have all that prepared ahead of time.
Yeah, along with getting fuel for the car, oil change, making sure that's not going to hit while you're on a long trip on the other side of the country. That's one thing that we put on the list. So we don't typically stop a ton when we're on a really long road trip, and we don't stop for meals necessarily. So one thing that has been helpful is to throw trash bags, like smaller trash bags, in the pocket of one of the seats. So that as we go, we can gather trash, and then when we stop to get gas, we can dump it instead of, getting to the destination and then having to do a really big clean out of the vehicle. And since we are eating in the car and we're not eating tons of packaged stuff, it could be like paper bowls that we're throwing in there. I heard this tip from a friend once, but instead of paper plates in the car, which we don't use a lot of paper products at home, but on the road, when we have really long road trips, I would have nowhere to wash dishes. So we do use paper, but using bowls instead of plates can be better for younger kids because they're less likely to spill it in their lap. Yeah. So even if it is a sandwich that maybe I made on my lap, which one tip for that is to take like a small cookie sheet with an edge or some other tray with an edge, and then you can use that as a counter space on your lap. And so then I would make sandwiches and then put them in bowls and pass them back. So having somewhere to put the trash constantly is important.
We have moved on to having two, because I got so tired of the kids handing me every little scrap. So I'm like, okay, there's a bag for the back and a bag for the front. And that way it's like every 3 seconds. Here, Mom, here's a little piece of garbage, another one.
Yep. So we also keep a roll of paper towels in the car, and that can help if something is spilled or if you need a napkin, instead of having to scrounge around for something to wash with.
I've even kept just like old hand towels, just a couple, and people can lay them on their lap if they want to.
Yep. We also typically bring a cooler and then some empty Ziploc bags so we can get ice from the hotel. So maybe I'll put like ice packs in on the first day, those big cooler ice packs. But then the second day I need ice, but I don't want like a leaking bag. And so then I'll have just some fresh gallon Ziploc bags and I can fill them up with hotel ice and then keep going and do that day after day. So you really only need like 1 or 2 bags. And then you just start using them and dumping them out and using them. So another thing that we do instead of picking up food at gas stations is we go to grocery stores in the towns that we're traveling through. So when we get to a spot where we have a hotel, we might unload everything into the hotel, and then I'll just run to an Aldi or grocery store and stock up on like the normal food we've been eating. and throw it in the cooler or throw it in the hotel refrigerator for the first part of it. And that way we're still kind of eating healthy and it's reducing the cost. And if you can find a real grocery store instead of like a small convenience store, usually you save a lot of money.
Oh man, I can't even tell you how much money we've thrown away. I know this one time we were like, oh, we'll just get a couple things because there was nothing, around.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it was probably like $60 or $80 at a gas station for just snacks. I was like, never again.
Yeah.
It was awful.
And it's hard though, because some places you travel, like when we were by Yellowstone or Grand Teton, there aren't regular like chain grocery stores. So you're kind of going into this overpriced small shop that maybe has a lot of stuff, but it's real tourist focused, and so then it is expensive or some of the produce is old or dusty even. But you don't have a choice. You're just eating what they have or you're not eating. Because even the time of the year when we went to Yellowstone, any of the restaurants were closed. So if you're going off season, it just becomes way more difficult. So having, food with you can be really helpful. But having like a system to get the food out, to be able to make stuff while you're driving. Because we didn't want to like sit down and have, take a lot of time like you would with a picnic. Because eating was a time when the kids were like fine with sitting in the car and not bored. They're like, oh good, I can sit here and eat. And so I wanted to use that time to travel versus like I'm bored in the car and now we're going to sit at a picnic table somewhere and have this 45-minute picnic, and then you just missed out on 45 minutes of driving to get it over with. So,
well, about the grocery store thing, that's something we really have had to learn. I mean, of course, with RVing, it's slightly different because we will move somewhere and we might stay there weeks or months. And in that instance, we really do our research on the area. We want to know how close the grocery stores are and the gas stations. And you can even find out the prices at those places. But that would help a lot too. Like you said, if you are planning a trip to somewhere remote like Yellowstone, figure out where the stores are. And if they're like really far and you really just want to come in with the food you need, you could plan, on your way there, there's a certain town, maybe it's an hour before, and you stop and get the groceries you need there, try to stock up for the time that you're there. But we've done that before. There was a place we stayed in Arizona. We absolutely loved it, but it was like an hour and a half to a decent grocery store. It had a little store in town, but it was like triple or quadruple the price what we normally paid for groceries. And it was scary. I didn't want to go there. There was always dangerous looking people around, like I didn't even want to go there. But we did, had to sometimes. But that was tricky because we really had to plan ahead, and we go into town. It's an hour and a half. So we really had to, stock up. So that might help.
What kind of stuff do you guys purchase? What do you eat when you're traveling?
Yeah, it ends up being sandwiches a lot, or just, fruits and veggies, hummus, sometimes like trail mix or nuts or
Fruit.
Yeah, fruit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's similar to us. One trip I went on, I knew there would not be grocery stores for a big chunk of it, and bread is so bulky, and we were really fitting 6 people, and all of our stuff, sleeping bags, air mattresses. The places we were staying at were kind of like camper cabins. So you don't need the tent, you don't need that, but you really need your bedding. And you need the extra stuff. And in hotels, usually the pull-out is really uncomfortable. Pull-out couch bed thing. And there's 6 of us, one hotel and room, and so we bring air mattresses. So we don't pull out the couch because you get that bar in your back. We just use air mattresses for those 2 kids, and we always have room on the floor for the air mattresses, but now you need to bring air mattresses and some kind of pump. And it just keeps going. So we fit it all in an SUV with all this stuff. It was like a week-long trip, but I knew I could probably go and get food. And so we brought like wraps. Like tortilla, and then we made sandwiches out of that. Well, I will tell you, after a week, my kids didn't want to eat wraps for years. For years. They even hate the word wrap. I thought in the beginning it was like a good, like, fresh sandwich without big bread. And because, in the car, bread would get smashed.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And you could put a lot of tortillas really tight in there. Yeah. It ruined it. So be careful with that. Variety is important. Did it work? Did anybody go hungry? No. Did we have food available? Absolutely we did. Were we so tired of it? It was just, I was tired of it too. I don't know if I've eaten a wrap since then. Like a cold. I mean, I'll eat like a taco, a burrito type. That's fine. But I mean like that cold wrap. Yep. But we're the same with the fruit, hummus, maybe some crackers, veggies, maybe some protein bars, that kind of stuff. Another thing I try to bring is some really strong like ginger ale. So the little tiny cans where it's like made with real ginger. So, because like the bigger, really sugary corn syrup, that doesn't help. But I do have kids that get car sick. So they're like these 4-ounce cans. They're usually kind of by alcohol mixers because I think they're meant to be poured in because they're so strong. But they don't have any alcohol in them. You can get them at the regular grocery store. They have real ginger in them, and that really hits a spot if a kid's like, you're on curvy mountains and they're like, oh, I feel sick. Just, it's a little tiny bit, and it does actually help. Wow. So I throw some of those in the middle, like console, just separate, because I don't want them drinking it like with meals, and we're all like plowing through soda. But it's just a little bit, and it can really help to stop that feeling. And then we also bring gallons of water, and then everybody brings their own water bottle, like their reusable water bottle, so we're not going through big cases of water. We're just at, filling it up over and over, and then you have to stop and buy expensive water even at a gas station. I'm getting more like the 99-cent jugs at the store instead of like the $3 jugs at the gas station, which I have had to do. Sometimes I've run out. Or sometimes if it's a lot of water, we don't want to drive with all that water. So we'll bring a few days worth of water and then grab a few days more. And then you can toss the gallon jugs when you get to somewhere that has trash instead of throwing away lots and lots of water bottles. Okay, let's talk about clothing for a second. So when we're traveling, we haven't been with a RV, so we're going in and out, like going into the hotel, taking it out of the car, packing it back up, bringing it back into the car. And some of the trips have been so tight that I had to pack it exactly back the exact way that I took it out. It just has to go. And I do have some tips for that, though. One thing I do with the younger kids is I make outfits. So when we're packing, I'll say, okay, go get 7 pairs of shorts, 7 shirts, 7 underwear, 7 socks, if they're wearing socks, depending on where we're going, instead of flip-flops. But I'll roll it up, and then I'll put a rubber band around it. So sometimes you don't need to take out all of the backpacks and luggage. I can just grab a pajama roll and a clothing roll. And so they're just holding, and then we have like a little canvas bag for their toothbrush, toothpaste, floss. And so that's like 3 items that they're bringing in instead of like a week's worth of clean and dirty laundry. Another thing I do is have a dirty laundry bag. So when we're in the hotel, dirty clothes is going in a bag, and that bag is going to the very bottom of the trunk. And then when we have a hotel, maybe we're like a week into a trip and we're going to go to a hotel that has laundry, and I bring quarters and laundry detergent. So the little laundry detergent sheets instead of the liquid, they're little like dry sheets. And that way you don't have to risk laundry detergent spilling or pouring all over the place. So you just have the sheets and quarters, and then I'll, after everyone's settled, go down to laundry and wash everything, and then those rubber bands that I've saved from using it up, I'll re-roll everything, repack their bag, and that way dirty laundry is never going back into their backpack, but you still kind of contain it until you get a chance, because I'm not going to stay up late every night to wash laundry, because sometimes there's a line, and sometimes the washing machines and dryers are so slow. You're just like, oh my goodness, it's really taking a long time. But trying to find hotels with laundry option that is good, and then also like a mini kitchen is really helpful, like Home 2 Suites or those kind. There's others, but where you have like a kitchen sink, and I can really get caught up on washing like the knife I was using in the car to cut tomatoes, or and all that extra stuff, and it feels like a really nice reset when we get to one of those where I can get everything clean again and have a fresh start, because you get travel weary. Even if you're going into hotels and everybody showers or whatever, you get travel weary with like going back into like dirty stuff.
Yep.
So you get a chance to kind of sort it out that way. And when we're very quickly checking in and out of hotels, another thing I do is I take all of the washcloths or towels that we've used and put them in the bathtub. And so that way we don't accidentally like miss something that was on the bathroom floor, like a pair of socks or somebody's swimming suit, because I'm very carefully, after we have taken all of our stuff out of the hotel. And sometimes even everybody's waiting in the car for me, and I do that last check and I shake out each towel, put it in the tub, shake it out, put it in the tub, and it's less likely that you're going to miss something. And then all the bedding on the beds, like, and then go and look under the beds, look in the drawers, one last check to make sure some kid didn't just shove something in a drawer and now, or like wrapped up their swimming suit in a towel and then plopped it and now we've lost the swimming suit for the trip. So some of that stuff, having that routine that works for your family can be helpful and keep you kind of on track for your trip. But it doesn't always go perfect, because like one time we were getting ready and the kids were pretty young, and I'm like, okay, get in the car, go potty one more time and get in the car. Little kids, right? You got to remind them. And then one at a time, everybody in the car. And we start driving and we're a couple hours down the road, and somebody's like, I have to go to the bathroom. Okay, so we stop at a rest stop or something. Where are your shoes?
Oh no.
They went potty, they went in the car, no shoes. No shoes. And it's not like a super little kid where you're like, I'll just carry you everywhere or wear you or something. So carry in, go to the bathroom, and then I have to go find shoes. So the next town, it was up north, and it was just some kind of like touristy shop with like t-shirts, things. But thankfully they had some shoes. They were just like Crocs, but expensive.
Oh no.
But you have to do it. Your kid has to have shoes.
Oh my gosh.
And so it doesn't, even all the planning, you think like nobody's going to get in the car for a long road trip with not even one pair of shoes. Sure enough, Do you have any funny travel stories like that?
No, but I had a friend who said to her kids spur of the moment, hey, let's go out for lunch. They went out for lunch. She got to the store and she looked down at her son and he was in his underwear.
Oh no.
He was awesome. Young, but still she's like, wow, okay, well.
How did we do this? Like, who passed inspection? Who's managing this crowd? Yeah. Yes, that's hilarious. So as far as entertainment, one thing that we have done in the past is to get audiobooks from the library or download them on Libby, whether for the whole family to listen to or on individual devices. Because, with age span across 9 years, it is difficult to listen to the same thing and be totally engaged for like a 30-hour road trip.
Right.
That's impossible. Sometimes you need separate stuff that you can really get into and kind of disconnect, because you're so in cramped quarters in a vehicle that it's nice to have that space, even if it's just a mental illusion of having space. And I even like to download my own stuff to listen to sometimes that's separate from entertaining the kids. So what do you guys do to prepare for trips in that way?
Yeah. Thankfully, our kids are really close in age, so we have done, like, we've listened through The Hobbit before. That was nice and long, so that lasted for a while. But sometimes the kids are over it and they just don't want to listen to what we're listening to. So, yeah, my husband does often listen to his own book, and I will sometimes download podcasts ahead of time that I want to listen to in case the internet is spotty. I know we've taken turns downloading movies and things that we want to watch individually. And we've learned, as far as like screen time goes, we have learned that saving it for after the halfway point has been a lifesaver. Because if we do a bunch, we let them do it like right away at the beginning. First of all, they're not, like at the beginning, nobody's bored, and we always encourage them to just like look out the window or just talk or do something else, play a game if they brought a game, or do it, read a book. But the second half, like towards the end, especially if it's a really long travel day, like if you're taking a road trip and you're just trying to get to a destination, it's a long day. And at the end of the day, everyone has a lot less patience. Yep. And I don't know what it is with my kids, but whenever we're nearing our destination, they start losing it. I think it's just like they know they're almost there. And so it's always so much smoother if we let them do their screen time after the second half. So that's what's worked for us and makes everyone so much happier.
And if you don't have like a time constraint of needing to do 16 hours before whatever, it is nice to stop at a playground at some point and just let everybody run around, especially younger kids, get all that energy out. And that can be helpful to not feel like they're trapped in the car forever. If you have a baby, letting the baby out of their car seat, stretch a little bit, that can be really nice if you can schedule that into your trip, and not doing such long hours at different ages. When the kids were really young, I would never have done over like a 10-hour drive. It was like 3. I felt like 3, they were like, I feel like I live in the car now. Because they don't have that concept of time. They'd fall asleep, they'd wake up, they're still in the car.
Yeah.
And now they're just mad and they want to get out of this like constricting car seat.
Yeah.
So it was harder. You couldn't like reason with them and be like, okay, 1 more hour here. Do you want to do this now? Do you want that snack? Do you want to, you know? So
yeah,
kind of knowing the ages is important.
That's true. Yeah, I think probably the most challenging road trip I took was before we were full-time RVers. We drove from Minneapolis to Dallas. I was pregnant and I was nursing a baby and we had a toddler.
Yeah.
So we had to stop like every couple hours to nurse and change diapers, and I think it took us almost 24 hours to get from...
That's right.
And, you know, the kids would like fall asleep and you'd be like, oh, finally they're asleep.
Yeah.
And then one of them would wake up and just start crying and wake everyone up and you're like, no. You can't reach them because they're way in the back, you know?
Yeah.
So you're just like listening to everyone cry.
Oh, it's
like,
so hard.
Yeah, so... Thankfully, it's not like that anymore, but
Yeah.
I definitely would not suggest doing Minneapolis to Dallas with a baby and a toddler.
No. No, absolutely not.
Unless you break it into
many days. But even that can be hard in that the kids are like, what? We have to get back in the car the next day, especially a baby. They're like, no, not this car seat. So a couple days at one location, if you have any way to break it up, you know. But we mostly saved a lot of our big traveling till when everybody was like more understanding of like logic of we have this many hours and we're going to do that and this many hours, and they could really grasp that time and look forward to the next thing. Yeah. Travel time can also be a great opportunity for meaningful conversation or funny conversation. So sometimes we'll play Would You Rather in the car, or some of those fun car games like from the 90s, you know, about finding letters on license plates or looking for a certain kind of car. It just depends on the vibe in the car. Listening to older music has been fun, you know, showing them different songs. And it's kind of like a captive audience when you're in the car, for better or for worse. But anything that keeps people, you know, enjoying it can just make for better family memories than... oh, my family used to go on these terrible road trips and I hated it and I didn't want to be there. So you do have to be a little creative to keep it fun for everybody.
Sometimes we'll even listen to a soundtrack from our favorite movie. So even if we're not watching the movie, it's still, you almost feel like you are if you're listening to the soundtrack. And that lasts, you know, that'll give us like an hour of sort of people being entertained.
Yeah. And it's also good to leave room for spontaneous stops sometimes. If you have room, you don't have to schedule everything out, but even stopping at like a small berry stand or like a cheese factory. That's just obviously driving through Wisconsin that I'm talking about. Who has cheese factories?
Wisconsin.
Yeah. But they can be really cute and a great place to stop and stretch your legs. But that can go along with spending money. So what we like to do is set a budget for the trip. So each day, this much of whatever we need. And then I just track what we're spending in a notebook. So each day just write down, okay, we stopped here, spent $5, or we stopped at this thing and it was $20. Or when you go to stop, looking online quickly to see if they have coupons or a Groupon or whatever you're going to. That can be really helpful.
Yeah, I absolutely know what you're talking about, Jody. Sometimes I have something on my list that I really want us to see. I think it's like a bucket list item. And I spend like a lot of time thinking about it and planning for it, whatever. And we get there and experience it, and like it's okay, but it's not. It turns out to not be as amazing as I made it out to be in my mind.
Yeah.
And then other times we'll just like happen upon something that we didn't even know was there, and it turns out to be the most amazing experience that we had, like the favorite of all of us. That happened to me when I was a kid, actually. My dad and me, he took me out to South Dakota, and we were camping in the back of our station wagon.
Wow.
And so we were trying to find a park that had a grill so we could cook our dinner. And so we just asked a local about a park, and he said, oh yeah, go to this one here. So we get to the park and we hear that there's like water somewhere. So we like explore down, and there's water going over these rocks, like this little waterfall into this swimming hole, like pool.
Wow.
It's just a nature thing. It's not man-made at all. And it turned out to be like the most special, amazing place I've ever been.
Oh.
I love that place. And it's like, it used to be, maybe more people know about it now, but when I was a kid, nobody knew about it unless you lived there, you know?
Yeah.
And so it really felt like we found this hidden gem, like this secret, cool place.
Yeah.
And it was so neat because in our first year of RVing, I was able to take my kids there.
Oh.
And I kind of told them about it, so they were prepped a little bit, like, this is a really cool place. They honestly, truly thought it was as cool as I did. Like, they really thought it was so cool. So that made it just, like, even more special.
Yeah.
And we would have never found that place if we were going to quickly and had everything packed so much. So I love that tip of leaving space in your time to experience those unexpected things that you don't even know are there. So.
Yeah. Yeah, in our recent trip to the Southwest, we drove past on this like smaller road that it was taking us on a completely drained lake.
Oh.
Empty. Like, think about a lake and what it would look like.
Yeah.
Completely empty.
Wow.
So they drained it to do some kind of other repair, but it was empty and it was huge. Like, where you could have boats and like tubing and to see the bottom of it. Now they had it blocked off because some people were getting stuck in the mud because it's wet, right? So, but it was pretty dry at that point, so I don't know the news story. But it was neat and it was memorable to people later. I think it was Oklahoma, possibly, that we found it in. But the kids talked about it after. And we would have never, if we didn't just go like, what in the world is that? Pull over. We would have missed it. So.
That's cool. Did you know that any 10-year-old, they say 4th grade, but it really is just a 10-year-old, during that school year, can get a free national parks pass that gets your whole family in one vehicle.
Yeah.
So we, thankfully, since we've been full-time RVing, our kids have been the perfect age. So every year we've had a 10-year-old.
Oh, good.
So that's been really a huge money saver.
Yeah.
So if you're planning trips to national parks in the U.S., that's something that you could look at if you have a 10-year-old. And speaking of national parks, a lot of them do not have internet. Like, not at all. Nope. Like, zero. So,
and we've even not had cell phone service.
Right.
So, like, you were really on your own.
Zero. Like, you're really in the wilderness. But the good news is you can download maps ahead of time. You could take a screenshot of a map. The national parks also have an app. There's an app. And for each park, you can download the info from that park before you go. So you can access it when you're offline.
Oh, nice.
So they have maps. They have things about when the different stations are open and the trails, information on everything. So that came in really handy for us as we've been traveling national parks.
We like to bring like an old-fashioned road atlas sometimes because when I'm planning a big trip across a lot of states, it's actually kind of hard to see it on my phone. Like, where are the national parks in this state? And like, what highway could I take? And if you don't know where things are in the state, it's like you want to see the whole state on a map and what they've highlighted for you, so you can kind of plan it out. And maybe instead of going through this state, I'm going to go through another state completely. So it's not too expensive, and you can really use an atlas forever. And the kids like to look at it too. But one of those big like books that shows every single state, has lots of tips and stuff. Can be easier.
There's one we got that specifically highlights the national parks.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So it's Rhode Island. I mean, it has everything, but also really like highlights and has like a map of where all of them are.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which really helps because sometimes I'm like, I don't remember how many parks there are in this particular state.
Some states have a ton.
Yeah.
And some states have one.
Zero.
Or zero.
Oh, there's lots of them that have zero.
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
And some are just packed full of them.
Like
you can
Utah.
just go. Yeah, Utah. Yep.
Yep.
Another thing about like digital clutter is sometimes when I'm on big trips, I want to take pictures of everything. Because I feel like if I don't, you gotta take pictures or 20 pictures of everything. But I've realized the pictures are just there to trigger your memory. So you don't need 20 pictures, you need one. But sometimes I'll take a bunch because I don't know if somebody's blinking. And then when I'm in the car, I use that time to delete the duplicates, and I'll just, which one's better, this one or this one? Okay, and delete the other one. Instead of getting home and you're like, I have 2,000 photos and 15 hours of video, for a really long trip. Like the one we did that was a month. That is, you end up with a ton, and then now it becomes this thing on your to-do list. Or you do nothing with it ever. And now nobody else can enjoy it because it's on your phone. So just doing that as you go, like tomorrow, deal with the photos and the videos that you took today.
Yeah.
And just really chunk it up.
That's a fabulous tip. That's awesome. It's good to think about what really matters to you and your family for a trip. I have learned that doing more, just to say you've done it, is not always adding value to your trip. I mean, when we first hit the road, full-time RVing, it was so tempting to want to make our goal to hit every state and every national park and every museum, and there's so much to do in any area or any state that you go to that you just can't do it all. And it's almost like you have an experience bucket. There was one trip we took that it was a few weeks put together. And we were making our way from Arizona back to Minnesota to spend the summer with friends and family. And we were in Arizona. We went to Antelope Canyon. Then we went to Utah. And we did a bunch of national parks there. We took a weekend trip to Colorado. We stopped at Four Corners. And then we went up to Tetons and Yellowstone. And then we went to Devil's Tower. And then we went to North Dakota to see Theodore Roosevelt. And I mean, it was all on our trip, and it was all stuff we really wanted to see. But it was all so amazing. Like, each one of them was just like, almost like overwhelming. The beauty of the nature and the experience was so amazing, like something we'd never done before.
Yeah.
And at the end, I couldn't take in anymore.
Yeah.
It's, it was like the bucket was full. Like, I couldn't even process what we'd seen and experienced. I didn't even want to see nature for a long time after that because it was too much. So there is something to be said for, like, just be okay. I'm kind of a FOMO person. Like, I want to do it all.
Yes.
So I have to make myself be okay with doing less and enjoying the things that we do.
Yeah.
Having enough time for each thing.
Yes.
If we're like, oh, this is a museum, we don't have time to see it all, but we're here, we did it, check the box, what is the point?
I think it's really hard, though, because the chance of getting to see it all before your kids leave the house is almost impossible.
It is.
If you're working and doing other stuff.
Yep.
So, and even financially. So you can't spend a week at each national park.
Right.
That's maybe an activity for retired years,
Yeah.
maybe. But especially because national parks, there's no internet, so you can't really work out of them. But we experienced that on this last trip. Because we're like, oh, there's no snow in Colorado right now. We could just, like, change our route and go a different way and hit up all the Utah stuff. And we did, but, like, when we got to Canyonlands, gorgeous. We all just, like, laid down on the rock and, like, I can't do anymore. Like, we walked so many miles and we've driven so many mountains and so much. And we're all just like, it's one of the most gorgeous. The weather was perfect. The light was perfect. The colors were amazing. And we just, like, couldn't physically enjoy it because we were so worn out.
Yeah.
And just wanted to get to the next hotel and plop down in bed and just be done. What do you do? It's hard because it's all so far away. So when you go down there, you might as well, like, do it all because you're there. And you have limited time because, it was winter. So there was another snowstorm coming through Colorado and they were closing roads. And we're like, we need to do it, go, get to somewhere that's not having as bad of a snowstorm.
Well, and you say it's hard to get, to be able to see all that stuff and do it all with kids. When we first started full-time RVing, I thought that would change. Yeah. Oh, we'll be in an area for X amount of time. We'll be free. We're free birds. We could, whatever. But it's even as a full-time RVer, it's impossible to see and do it all. Every single time I go somewhere afterward, I'm talking to people about it, and they're like, oh, did you do such and such? Did you see this? Did you know about this? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't even know about it, and I was there for weeks.
Yeah.
It's like, you just can't,
You can't know it all.
It's too much.
Nope. Yeah. So it's good to be content with what you did do.
Yeah.
And just be like, we went there and did it. Maybe someday we'll go back and maybe it won't be all the kids because some of them will have moved on. Or adult children travel with, I work with people that still go on an annual big week-long trip with their family. Yeah, you just never know. It's not promised to you.
No.
So you have to just be grateful for what you can do. And then after the trip, when you're unpacking, make note of what you didn't use. Because something that I use, it might not be something that you would use on a trip.
Yep.
And so just kind of being aware of that and kind of adding in that time that you don't have to immediately unpack when you first get home. Like take out the food, take out any kind of ice stuff when you get home. But then what I do is, we're probably pretty dirty when we get home, just with all the hiking and all the sand and all the, clay and dust, and we come back pretty filthy if we're really getting out in nature. It might not be the same if we flew to a resort and came back. I might come back pretty tidy. But what we do, your shoes are dirty, you feel dirty, all your clothes are dirty. But I take stuff out like one bag or one chunk at a time, wash it, and then bring it into the house. Instead of carrying everything into the house, making this big mountain of dusty, dirty, filthy sleeping bags, luggage, whatever, sweatshirts and everything, I just leave it in the car and unpack it slowly, wash, dry, into the house, wash, dry, into the house. And that way it just feels more doable and not overwhelming. And then if we have to go back to real life really quickly, like I work the next day, I'm like, it's okay. I'm going to get up in the morning, start a load, go to work, lunch, switch it out, work, dinner, switch it out, and then I'm not looking at this big mountain where people are trying to take stuff out of it, and I'm like, wait, that is absolutely covered in clay, dust. I need to wash it. Please don't put that in your room. So, and everybody can help with that, and that's just been a lot more doable, for my sanity, and keeps the dirt out of the house. So
I love that.
So we would love to read or hear about your road trip experiences as a minimalist. So if you have any stories you'd like to share with us or tips, please comment that or share it with our Instagram. We'd love to hear from you.
We hope you enjoyed delving into this topic with us and found a few tips that might help you on your journey. We want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our amazing listeners for tuning in. Your support and curiosity are what keeps us going. For more tools and resources to help you on your journey toward a simpler life, visit our website, www.123minimize.com. If you found today's episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an opportunity to explore new ideas and perspectives. And if you're inclined, leave us a review, which helps to spread the word to others who might enjoy the journey too. As always, feel free to connect with us on Facebook or Instagram to share your thoughts, suggestions, or just to say hi. Until next time, stay motivated. Take care.